Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at the XL Bellibolt in the Open Ultra League. This Pokemon gained around 20 rankings with a new season, which is kinda interesting because the meta is a little bit weak against it, so let's see how good this is going to be. Definitely didn't need 20 attempts to do this intro, but this is going to be a different course here. Let's take a look at the team. We're going to have the Ampharos as our Saisob, which is going to have access to Brutal Swing as well as the move Trailblaze, giving you coverage against the main weaknesses against basically the Electric type Pokemon, which is going to be Giratina, which is going to be weak against Brutal Swing, plus also of course the ground type Pokemon, which are going to not appreciate the Trailblaze. So we're going to actually use here the normal variant for a good reason, because actually for the first battle I used the Shadow variant, which you're not going to see in today's video, and I got completely walled basically in this game, but I had like the Saisob of the Swampert against my Saisob of the Ampharos, and Shadow Swampert is actually able to knock a Shadow Ampharos out with just one Hydro Cannon, which is not really ideal, while the normal Ampharos is going to be able to survive this one. And you would be basically able to go for one Brutal Swing and then go for a Trailblaze and take a Hydro Cannon in between, which would allow you to still win this game. Here we're going to go up against the Auroras, and of course you're going to see here the big boom coming up. This is the cool thing about the Bellibolt. You are going to get basically here the Step Zap Cannon, which is going to be an interesting one. Getting hit here onto the Auroras, not going to get the debuff. Of course, it's me, I never get any kind of chance like this. And now because of us not getting the debuff, they're going to be able to knock us out with just a Weather Ball. But I'm still going to be able to reach a foul play in time, and so we're going to basically get our mana bus up against the MEWeedle, and we will be able to win this game. Well, let's take a look at the next opponent. We're going to have a Dragonite in the lead. This is something that I hate to see for this team. I feel like I kind of wish I would have had the other fast move on my Mandibus, but here we're going to see the opponent swapping out into the Ampharos, which is okay for us because we can damage them a little bit. We still have our own Ampharos, and we can just go ahead and go for the Brutal Swing, which should put them kind of into range where I can farm them down afterwards, most likely. As they're going to go for their own charge move, it is going to be, let's see, it's going to be the Zap Cannon, actually. This is a mad. We're going to get the attack drop onto us, but we can still go for a charge move. Actually could have been even able to farm them down, but I didn't want to risk it, and so the opponent can still just go ahead and go for the farm down with their Dragonite, but this was a mad one. Of course, they got immediately the attack drop there, which would have been a little bit crucial for us if they didn't get this, but we can still go for an Aerial Ace against the opponent. Most likely gonna get the shield from them as well, as we can swap out into the Bellibolt, and now Bellibolt is supposed to win this game, but let's see if this is going to actually work out for us. The Dragon Claws coming through, we can still go for a Discharge. We have to hope that there's something in the back lurking that we can hit with a Discharge, but let's see if we're going to, or like with a Zap Cannon more likely, that we're going to see here something in the back that we like to see. We're going to see the Dragon Claw coming through, and we're going to see another Dragon Claw coming through, which is really bad for us, because now we're going to be low into the deep red health. It's actually going to be the superpower. I can still at least reach a charge move here. I am going to be forced to swap out eventually, and I can still go for a charge move here, which is going to be a little bit of a trickier one. The Surf is coming through, not going to get the knockout here. But sadly, because I went for the superpower prior, we're going to be in farmland range, so this was actually a close one. Well, let's take a look at the next opponent here. We're going to have the Mandibus against a Poliwrath. This is going to be a fairly decent matchup for me, as you're going to have Air Slash, but I kind of just want to get some extra energy and swap out later on, because we have two Electric type in the back, and we have a Water type against in the lead, so we have an ABB style line anyway. So having basically the Saisob here of the of the Ampharos is going to be kind of nice. And honestly, I made a mistake here. I should have went for the Trailblaze against the Registeel for the first one, because this matchup is taking quite a long time, and with Trailblazed attack buff, I think this would have been way better for me. As you can see, how many Volt Switches I already hit, how many charge moves I already hit, and I can still survive the charge move from the opponent, which is kind of wild. So here I can go for one Brutal Swing. I should be able to reach another Brutal Swing afterwards, which I am not going to be able to do so, because I was a little bit too greedy and went for an extra fast move. And so the opponent can knock me out, and I am going to be forced to go into my Bellibolt. I can overfarm by a little bit here by two fast moves, go for the Discharge and hope for the best. Let's see what the opponent going to do. They are going to go into the Skeledirge, and I'm not going to joke around here. I'm just going to go straight for the Zap Cannon. This Zap Cannon hopefully going to hit as well. Third game, second Zap Cannon going to hit them as well, as we can go for a charge move here with our Mandibus. Going to get the Poliwrath in as well before, which is going to use a shield against it, which is fine. Icy Wind is coming through. Going to get the debuff of our attack, but we can just go for another Aerial Ace, doing some tremendous amount of damage. Super effective stab move, but they're going to decide to use another shield, which is kind of just opening up the matchup again for our Bellibolt in the back. And Bellibolt is actually supposed to be at least very bulky. I felt like I kind of was let down by the bulk of this Pokemon here. I felt like it was a little bit bulkier in the Great League, but it's most likely not really the case actually there. But we're going to be able to use a shield here against the Disarming Voice, and the opponent decides to forfeit. Next opponent coming through, let's see what we're going to encounter here. We're going to encounter a Nidoqueen, and this is pretty bad. We already have a weakness against ground-type Pokemon, while we have a flying-type Pokemon in the lead, which is supposed to counter them. The Poison Fang damage is going to add up, and it's not going to be a great matchup at all. I can still go for an Aerial Ace, going to get the shield from the opponent, which is kind of nice. But as you can see here, they can still go for a charge move. And maybe I should go for the foul play here. Hopefully I did go for the foul play, and I did go for the foul play. This is the right call. So like this, we're going to get the opponent into range where I can just go for one brutal swing and knock them out. I'm still going to use a shield here. I thought this was just a Poison Fang, but I wasn't sure, and it is just a Poison Fang as I decide to swap out into the Obstagoon. I basically pretend here that I have the Focus Blast, and I do not have the Focus Blast, but the opponent doesn't know that. So they're going to decide to use a shield here onto the Trailblaze, allowing me to get a buff, as well as I can just go for another Trailblaze afterwards, which is going to get the opponent fairly low, as they're going to be now buffed +2 here. We can do some decent damage with the fast move already. Still going to have to hit basically a discharge against the opponent, but I can take a move here. Cross chop coming through, doesn't get the knockout, and I can just go into my Bellibolt now, hoping that I can sweep endgame with this Pokemon. We see the Night Slash coming through, and we will see that I can still go for discharge here, which is kind of nice. But it's not going to be over yet. We're going to see the discharge gonna get the knockout there. They can swap out still into the Nidoqueen. And I decide to go for a shield here, hoping that there's going to be something in the back that we can hit with the Zap Cannon of our Bellibolt. We have to still hit the discharge here against the Nidoqueen. This is not going to do enough damage yet, but like 1 or 2 more fast moves is going to be all it takes. We see the Jellicent coming in. I can go for the Zap Cannon, and Zap Cannon is all it takes to do a ton of damage, but not get the knockout. But I can still swap out into my Mandibuzz, catch the Surf, and Bellibolt is going to be able to come back and get a triple kill here. What a game. Let's take a look at the next opponent. They are going to run the Mandibuzz against the Tentacruel. That's going to be fine for my backline. I can swap out immediately into my Ampharos, getting out a potential answer against Bellibolt as well. But just going to be the Greedent, and this is not really ideal. And I make a little bit of a mistake here as well, I think. No, never mind. I just go up towards the Focus Blast, which is smart to do, because it's going to force the opponent to maybe even think about using a shield here. But of course, they're not going to do this here because, yeah, they are not really feeling it. Focus Blast is pretty rare, I think, nowadays, because Trailblaze just gives you a little bit better coverage against Pokemon like the Swampert. But they're still going to be forced to go for another charge move here, which is cool. So we are gonna still get into a scenario where I can go for a full farm down here with my Mandibuzz, but they decide to swap out into their own Mandibuzz. And honestly, just because for the sake of the video, I kind of want to go for all the Zap Cannons. And if I would have played it not for the video, most I just went for the safe play and go for discharge all the time. But I also hope for a debuff onto their attack, which I at least get, but they decide to use a shield and they just outspam me quite a bit there because, yeah, Zap Cannon is, I think, an 80 energy move or something like this, so like it takes quite a while to get there. And so I'm going to be forced to use a shield. Should have most likely shielded the first move already from the opponent, but here I can still go for a Zap Cannon, hope that the opponent going to let this move go through. But they decide to use a shield again. We're going to get another attack drop. I should be able to survive a move now without using a shield, but I'm still going to use a shield. Going to be the Dark Pulse. And they swap out into the Greedent. They still had a move stored there, which I didn't know about. And so they're going to be able to win this game. I'm just going to still try my best here, but it is fairly unlikely that we're going to still have a chance of winning this game. We see the full farm down from me. They can still even reach another body slam. Like, this Pokemon is just so insanely spammy. Greedent is just absolutely wild. And we see, of course, that they have this Tentacruel still lurking in the back, which I forgot about, to be fair. But yeah, my backline would have been really good for it. And if I still remember that they had the Tentacruel, which we saw in the beginning, I just would have went for Discharge as well on my Bellibolt, because I know that electric type Pokemon are kind of decent against the opponent's team. But I decided against it, and so like, yeah, this was my mistake again. Could have played a little bit better. Nice Blizzard by the opponent. We can move on to the next one. Next opponent coming up, again, a pretty bad lead for me. I kind of don't like to go up against Shadow Dragonite, but let's see what we can do here. We can still go for an aerial ace against the opponent, which is going to be an interesting one, as it can get the shield from the opponent here as well. We're going to see that the opponent is going to go for their own charge move. It's going to be the Dragon Claw, and I can now just go for my aerial ace, trying to get some damage onto the opponent and getting the final shield from them as well. Being 2 shields up, I kind of feel like very comfortable, because I can just go for a shield here as well against the opponent's Dragonite, and I have so much coverage on this Ampharos, but sadly, they are swapping into their Registeel, and again, I actually gonna go ahead and go for the Brutal Swing here, which I feel like is the right call. Last time I wanted to go for the Trailblaze, but I didn't go for the Trailblaze, which was then definitely the bad call. But here, because I think I'm already in Focus Blast range, I don't really have anything to fear, but I was actually not in Focus Blast range, or they're actually undercharged here, I'm not sure, but they should be able to go for a full farm down then, but maybe I can still reach a Brutal Swing in time, but no, they're still gonna go for a charge move against me, which might put them into farm down range for Bellibolt, but I kinda doubt it, and yes, like, Thunder Shock does no damage, I'm going to overfarm by a little bit. And we can still go for Discharge here, which is going to get the knockout against the opponent's Registeel. They are shieldless, and we see the Dragonite swapping back in. We can go for a charge move here, but they decide to swap out into the Jellicent, which is a little bit tricky for us, because now we're going to be able to hopefully catch a move here, which does not work out at all, but we're going to get the opponent a little bit lower. And I kind of have to get out of this matchup with my Bellibolt with 2 discharges stored for also the opponent's, Dragonite. They have to go for 2 charge moves here, which is amazing, so they kind of energy dry. And so I am in a fairly decent spot. I can even take still 1 Shadow Ball from the opponent if I want to. Discharge is coming through, already getting the knockout here, kinda secures me the win, because unless they have Draco Meteor, some stuff like this, I am going to be fine. They go for the superpower, and so this is going to be a good game. I feel like in hindsight, Bellibolt was a little bit better than I thought it was, because, yeah, I don't know, I feel like it does do some decent stuff here in those battles as well, so I feel like it is a decent Pokemon to play. It's mostly not the best one. You kind of want to have something with a little bit more coverage, but maybe eventually this Pokemon gets some more coverage. I feel like Discharge is one of the moves that is kind of also close to getting a buff eventually, but we have to see about this. We're gonna see here the Dragonite again in the lead. Like, honestly, Dragonite was so common. I can use a shield onto the charge move from the opponent as we see the Registeel coming in. This time around, I decide to go for the Trailblaze just because I know that I can get a shield here. I'm thinking that I actually run the Focus Blast, and now I can do some buff damage against the opponent's Registeel. Let's see if this is actually going to work. I should be able to still survive this Focus Blast from the opponent, forcing them to go for another one. And so I got the shield from the opponent. I can get more damage onto the opponent as well with my fast move as well as my Brutal Swing. And as we can see, they're going to be kind of in a similar situation as before. But this time around, they had to use a shield to basically still realign, which is amazing, as I can go ahead and go for my Bellibolt. Overfarm by a little bit too much actually, because I can still get to another charge move. I use a shield because I know that Focus Blast does a ton of damage, but as you can see here, I'm still forced to go for another charge move, sadly, which I have to undercharge. Like, it doesn't really matter, to be fair, but they decide to use a shield, which is actually good for me, because now I can go for another discharge, knock them out, and we will see them forfeiting here actually. So I guess they were a little bit weak in the back against the electric type Pokemon. We would have a great lead with the Trevenant, but we have to make sure that we can realign. And I don't think we are going to be able to do that, because Poliwrath does not really care too much about the Bellibolt, and also against the Ampharos it's not going to be as ideal, because Poliwrath is just very bulky, does so much damage with Counter plus Scald. Like, Poliwrath is basically perfect in terms of what it does and what it can do, because it has Icy Wind, it has Scald, like 2 very strong moves, which gives you great coverage against, for example, grass type Pokemon that you don't want to face as a water type Pokemon. Plus you have Counter, which is also Stab. It's just mad how strong Poliwrath is in the current meta and in general. But we're going to be able to at least go into our Ampharos now. And Ampharos has access to the move Brutal Swing, so I can let those Scalds go through. I don't really care too much about them. I get some extra energy and I can swap out and hope that there's not going to be something like a Regirock in the back that completely hardwalls my lead. I mean, it does make sense. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not really mad about it too much here, because the opponent has a great team with this. Like, it does make sense to run the Regirock as well. But it is kind of unfortunate, of course, for us. Even if I had Snarl, it would have been way better for me. But I am running, of course, the fast move Air Slash, giving me a little bit more coverage against Pokemon like Virizion, which I was a little bit scared about. But as you can see, Stone Edge is going to knock me out. I have to go for a Trailblaze basically to knock them out, I think, from this range. But as I go for a charge move, I decide to use a shield and try to overfarm by a little bit. They go into the Trevenant, and I was not sure how much energy the Trevenant had already. I don't think they had that much. So I go for another charge move here, and I should have tried to risk it to go for another fast move before that, because as you're going to see here, I'm just 1 fast move away of winning this game, which is kind of unfortunate, but good game to the opponent. Let's move on to the next one. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have an amazing lead of the Venusaur into our Mandibuzz. They decide to stay in for a little bit and swap out now into the Giratina. I kind of want to weaken them up a little bit here with my Mandibuzz and go for a charge move first. Maybe should have stayed in a little bit longer even, but I decided to swap out now into my Ampharos, which can go for the super effective Brutal Swing, which is going to be even a little bit better. You see the Dragonite coming through. I try to go for another charge move here, but I'm forced to go for a shield here actually because I cannot allow the opponent to line their Venusaur against my Pokemon in the back. So I can still go for Brutal Swing here. This is going to get some damage onto them. I'm forced to go for another Brutal Swing. I don't want to waste another shield. And so I'm going to get out of this matchup with a shield disadvantage, but at least I have realignment, which is kind of important as well. As I can go for a charge move here, Brutal Swing is coming through. The opponent is going to take this move as well, as they're going to go for a charge move before I can even feint here, because it's going to be actually kind of nice for me. I can still get some energy off their Venusaur as I can swap out back into my Mandibuzz. They're going to have the Swampert in the back, which is really bad for me because I swapped immediately into my Bellibolt. And I'm going to use a shield here so I can at least maybe hit a move or something like this, because yeah, they're going to have access to the Earthquake, and they actually went for the bait, which I did not get at this point at all. Like, they would have been in such a prime position to just go straight for the Earthquake without really any drawback, but they decided not to and go for the Earthquake afterwards. But because we got the debuff, we were actually able to get, yeah, basically some damage onto the opponent, as well as another shield from the opponent. But sadly I don't get another discharge here, which is kind of unfortunate, and they can keep a lot of energy for their Swampert in the back. I'm still going to be forced to take those sludge bombs, as I can just, what the hell, as I can just go ahead and go for an aerial ace, knock them out. After all that, I can knock them out here still with my Mandibuzz, but it's looking pretty bad, as Hydro Cannons is just going to be a little bit too much for me to take, and so the opponent can knock me out, and this is going to be it for this video. So Bellibolt was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.